They don't run because you loved them too much. They run because, somewhere deep inside, love feels like danger. To an avoidant heart, closeness is not warmth, it's exposure. Intimacy is not connection, it's the quiet terror of being truly seen. And the moment someone offers real safety, something inside them whispers, "You're getting too close. You're about to be abandoned. Leave first." So they pull back, not because love repels them, but because love awakens the part of them they've spent their whole life protecting. What follows isn't about blaming them or doubting yourself. It's about understanding the invisible panic underneath their distance, and why the person who loves them most often becomes the one they fear the most. There's always a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when something shifts inside an avoidant person. It often happens right after a moment of closeness. A quiet night, a soft touch, a conversation where they let a little more of their inner world slip through. To you, it feels like connection. To them, it feels like a cliff edge. Because intimacy is not neutral for an avoidant heart. It wakes up old memories. Their body still carries memories of needing someone who wasn't emotionally available, and learning, slowly and painfully, that needing people is unsafe. So when you show up consistently, when you care deeply, when you see them clearly, something inside them grows tense. Closeness activates the very alarm system they built to survive childhood. Not because you're unsafe, but because safety itself feels unfamiliar. This is why avoidant people often retreat right after things start to feel good. Not because they've lost interest, not because they're confused, but because the feeling of being valued stirs a truth they've spent years keeping locked away. If you know me this deeply, you can hurt me more than anyone else ever could. Pulling away becomes an act of self-preservation, a way to regain control, a way to shrink the emotional distance back to something they believe they can manage. You'll see it in the delayed replies, the sudden coolness, the quieting of their affection, not as punishment, but as a shield. And here's the part most people never realize. An avoidant person doesn't run from love because love feels wrong. They run because love finally feels real, and real intimacy threatens the one thing they rely on to feel safe: emotional independence. If they stay close, they risk needing you. If they need you, they risk losing you. If they lose you, they fear they won't survive it. So they leave first, not to wound you, but to protect the part of themselves that once learned the hard way. Connection comes with a cost, and distance, even if painful, feels like protection. To someone with an avoidant attachment style, care doesn't enter their body as comfort. It enters as pressure, a quiet, tightening feeling in the chest, as if love itself is asking them for something they aren't sure they can give. Even the simplest expressions of affection can feel overwhelming. A text that says, "I miss you." A question like, "Are you okay?" A moment where you reach for them emotionally. None of these are demands, but their nervous system reads them differently. Because deep beneath the surface, avoidant people carry an internal rule they learned early in life. If someone depends on me, I will disappoint them. If I depend on someone, they will disappear. So when you show genuine care, it awakens a sense of responsibility they never asked for. A fear that your love requires them to show up consistently, emotionally, vulnerably. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't trust themselves to stay open without eventually shutting down. Care becomes expectation. Expectation becomes pressure. Pressure becomes threat. And once the threat is activated, their instinct is to create space fast. They might suddenly seem irritated by small things. They might avoid deeper conversations. They might become strangely quiet or aloof, as if affection is something they have to brace themselves against. Not because you're asking for too much, but because their early life taught them that emotional closeness always comes with a hidden cost. To an avoidant person, your love can feel like an invitation to a world they don't know how to live in, a world where their walls would have to come down. But those walls aren't defenses they consciously built. They are survival strategies, designed to protect a younger version of themselves who learned that being emotionally needed was dangerous and being emotionally vulnerable was worse. So when you care, they pull back. Not to punish you, not to test you, but to protect themselves from the fear that they will either fail you or lose you. And paradoxically, the more pure your intentions, the more deeply their old instincts get triggered. Because the closer love gets, the more pressure they feel to become someone they're terrified they can't be. Avoidant people don't fear love as much as they fear what love reveals. Because real intimacy isn't just closeness, it's visibility. And visibility is the one experience their nervous system has never learned how to trust. Every time you move closer, every time you understand them a little better, every time you notice something they didn't say out loud, a part of them tenses. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. Avoidant attachment often begins in childhood homes where being emotionally seen was either unwelcome, inconvenient, or unsafe. Maybe they were told to be strong. Maybe their feelings were ignored or minimized. Maybe vulnerability was mocked or punished or simply left unanswered. So they adapted. They became self-reliant, private, guarded, invisible when necessary. They learned that the safest version of themselves is the one that no one can truly access. Then someone like you appears. Someone who listens. Someone who notices the small shifts in their voice. Someone who sees the softness they keep hidden. Someone who recognizes the lonely child behind their self-sufficiency. And suddenly, the armor they've worn for years feels thinner than it ever has before. Being understood feels good, but it also feels dangerous. Because if you can see the real them, you can touch the real them. And if you can touch the real them, you can hurt the real them. This is why avoidant people often retreat after moments of emotional closeness. A deep conversation. A moment where they opened up without meaning to. A night when they let themselves be held. They wake up the next day feeling exposed, as if they let you walk into a room inside them that no one is allowed to enter. Their instinct is to close the door quickly before you see anything else, before you ask for more of them, before they get used to the feeling of being understood, before they start to need that understanding, because needing someone is the one thing their early life taught them never to do. So they create distance. Not to erase what happened, but to regain control over what you're allowed to see. It isn't rejection. It's fear. Fear that if you see too much, you'll confirm the old belief they've carried forever. That who they are, at their core, is not someone anyone can stay with. Avoidant people don't just prefer independence. They depend on it the way most people depend on oxygen. It isn't a personality trait. It's a survival strategy. When they were young, emotional self-reliance wasn't a choice. It was the only way to move through the world without being disappointed, dismissed, or overwhelmed. They learned early that no one was coming to meet them where they were. So they stopped reaching, stopped asking, stopped needing. And over time, independence hardened into identity. This is who I am. This is how I stay safe. So when someone comes into their life and offers closeness, real, stable, consistent closeness. It stirs a conflict they don't know how to reconcile, because intimacy requires interdependence. It requires emotional exchange, shared vulnerability, a willingness to let someone in. To an avoidant person, these things feel like obligations, like losing control over the very thing that kept them safe for so long, their autonomy. If they begin to rely on you, even a little, they fear they could lose themselves. This is why they flinch at labels, commitments, long-term plans, or conversations about the future. Not because they don't care or don't want connection, but because these things imply a merging that threatens their internal equilibrium. Your presence in their life creates a tension they can't voice, the desire to stay close, and the instinct to pull away. They want connection, but not dependency. They want affection, but not expectation. They want to be loved, but not needed. And so they run, not to escape you, but to escape the version of themselves they're terrified they'll have to become if they stay close. Someone open, someone vulnerable, someone who can be hurt again. Their retreat is an attempt to reclaim the independence they built their identity on, to reassert safety in a world where closeness feels like surrender. But here's the paradox. The more they try to protect their independence, the more isolated they feel. And the more isolated they feel, the more they quietly long for the connection they're pushing away. It isn't indifference. It's a tug of war inside them, between the self they constructed for safety and the self that aches for someone who feels like home. Most people assume avoidant individuals fear commitment, but commitment isn't the true fear. The deeper fear is abandonment, the kind they experienced so early and so quietly that they now expect it from anyone who gets too close. Avoidant attachment often forms in homes where a child's emotional world went unanswered. Parents may have been physically present, but emotionally distant, warm one moment and withdrawn the next, unpredictable in ways a child absorbs but can't understand. To survive that inconsistency, the child learns a painful lesson. If I need someone, they will let me down. If I open up, I will be left alone with the weight of my own feelings. That wound doesn't disappear in adulthood. It simply becomes more refined, more hidden, more disguised as self-reliance. So when someone like you appears, steady, caring, emotionally present, you awaken a longing inside them they've spent years numbing. They feel drawn to you, almost magnetically. But that longing terrifies them, because longing implies risk. Needing implies danger. Attachment implies loss. They begin to feel what they once felt as a child, the quiet vulnerability that comes before heartbreak. So they run preemptively, not because they expect you to hurt them, but because their body remembers what it felt like when someone once did. Their nervous system is trying to protect them from a wound that is decades old. This is why avoidant people often disappear at the exact moment things feel the most meaningful. They sense the possibility of loss long before any real threat exists. They see the shadow of abandonment even in the light of connection. They fear getting close because closeness creates the conditions where heartbreak becomes possible. Distance becomes their shield. Withdrawal becomes their way of avoiding the pain before it even arrives. Silence becomes their attempt to control the narrative. If I pull away first, I can't be blindsided again. But beneath that retreat is a quieter truth. They don't want to lose you. They're trying not to lose themselves. Their running isn't a rejection of you. It's a reenactment of an old wound they never had the safety to heal. A wound that whispers the same message every time someone gets close. Leave now before they leave you. Avoidant people don't disappear because they've stopped caring. If anything, the opposite is true. They leave because the connection became too real. And then they return because the distance becomes unbearable. This push and pull is not manipulation. It is the blueprint of someone who never learned how to hold closeness and safety at the same time. When they retreat, the first feeling is relief. Space feels familiar. Silence feels manageable. Their nervous system settles, believing it has escaped a threat. But then the second feeling arrives. Loneliness. The quiet ache that shows up once the adrenaline of withdrawal fades. The realization that they miss the warmth you brought into their life. The emotional oxygen they keep pretending they don't need. They think about reaching out. A message drafted but not sent. Your name sitting in their phone like a doorway they can't fully open. They rehearse what they might say. Hey, how have you been? Sorry, I disappeared. I've just been overwhelmed. Always starting soft. Always avoiding the deeper truth they don't have the words for. They come back because the connection mattered. Because you made them feel something they can't find in their emotional solitude. Because avoiding intimacy doesn't erase their desire for it. It only buries it under layers of fear. But here's the painful paradox. The very thing that pulls them back is the same thing that pushes them away again. The moment closeness begins to rebuild, the moment they feel seen or cared for or needed, their old alarm system turns on. Love awakens their longing, and longing awakens their fear. So they hover between two worlds, the world where they reach for you and the world where they retreat from you. Not because they want to confuse you, but because they are confused inside themselves. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they still haven't found a way to stay without feeling exposed. What keeps them near you is the same thing that keeps them running. A heart that wants connection and a nervous system that fears it. And until those two parts learn how to coexist, they will continue to drift back and forth, drawn toward the one person who feels safe and terrified of the very safety they crave. Avoidant people don't run from love. They run from the places inside themselves where love was never safe. And when someone finally comes along who sees them gently, who offers warmth without demand, who touches the parts they've spent years hiding, their instinct is to protect the very wound your presence begins to soften. Their distance is not a measure of your worth. It is the echo of their history. But even in the space they create, something remains unspoken. They felt the connection too. They just didn't know how to hold it. And maybe one day, when their inner world becomes a place they can finally stay, they'll understand that you weren't the threat. You were the beginning of safety.